Speak English Anyway, a place where confidence matters more than perfection, and every voice deserves to be heard.
Hey people, I'm Linda.
And I'm Ethan, and today we are talking about something that honestly might be the most fun way to learn English that exists.
The most fun. No argument for me on that one.
No argument at all, because today we are talking about how to use series and movies to actually learn English. Not just watch and enjoy, but watch and grow.
And there is a big difference between those two things. A very big difference.
There is, and we are going to talk about exactly what that difference is, why most people are doing this wrong without knowing it, and what to do instead.
So if you have ever watched a show in English and thought, okay, I enjoyed that, but I don't feel like my English got any better, this episode is for you.
This episode is absolutely for you. Okay, Linda, let me start with a question.
Sure.
Do you remember the first show you ever watched in English? Like, really watched, not just with subtitles in your language, but actually trying to understand it in English.
Oh, yes, I remember it very well. It was a sitcom, very fast dialogue, a lot of slang, a lot of jokes that relied on cultural references I had no context for whatsoever.
So, the perfect beginner show.
The absolute perfect choice for someone who was not ready for it at all. I understood maybe 40%, but I kept watching because I loved the characters, and something interesting happened.
What happened?
After about 2 weeks of watching every evening, I started catching more. Not because I had studied anything, just because my ear was getting used to the rhythm of English, the speed, the music of it.
The music of it. I love that phrase.
Every language has a music, and watching that show was like listening to the same song every day until the melody started to feel familiar.
And that is actually how the brain works with language. Exposure, repeated over time, builds pattern recognition. You start to hear the shapes of words even before you fully understand them.
Exactly. And that is why watching series and movies in English is so powerful. It's not just vocabulary, it's rhythm, it's tone, it's the way real people actually speak, which is very different from the way textbooks say people speak.
Very, very different. Nobody in real life says, "Could you please direct me to the nearest train station?" They say, "Hey, where's the train?"
Nobody talks like a textbook, but series and movies, they show you how people actually talk. The contractions, the dropped letters, the interruptions, the slang, the emotion behind the words.
Real English, not classroom English.
Real English, which is the whole point of this podcast, honestly. Okay, so we agree that watching in English is valuable, but here's the thing. Most people watch in a way that gives them maybe 20% of the possible benefit.
20%. That's a generous estimate, honestly.
Maybe generous, because here's what most people do. They put on a show, they watch it with subtitles in their own language, they enjoy it, they understand everything because of the subtitles, and then when the show ends, nothing has really entered their brain in English.
Because the subtitles were doing all the work.
The subtitles were doing 100% of the work. The English audio was just background music.
And that's the key problem. Your brain is lazy in the most efficient way possible. If you give it an easier route to understanding, subtitles in your own language, it will take that route every single time and completely ignore the English.
Every single time. So the first and most important shift is this. Move to English subtitles. Not your language. English.
And I know some people are thinking, but I won't understand anything.
And to those people, I say, you will understand more than you think. And more importantly, your brain will now have to work with the English. It has no shortcut anymore. It has to engage.
It has to show up.
It has to show up. And when the brain shows up, it learns. That is just how it works.
Okay, so English subtitles, that is shift 1. What is shift 2?
Shift 2, choose the right show for where you are right now.
Right, because not every show is equally useful for every learner.
Not at all. And this is where people make a mistake. They think, I should watch something advanced because that will push me more. And then they put on a political drama or a legal thriller with complex vocabulary and fast dialogue, and
They understand nothing and give up.
they understand nothing and give up after 15 minutes, which is the opposite of helpful.
So what should people look for?
For beginners and intermediate learners, look for shows with clear dialogue, everyday situations, and visual context that helps you understand what is happening even when you miss words. Sitcoms are great for this. Slice-of-life dramas, shows about friends, family, work, daily life.
Because the situations are familiar. You already know the context from your own life.
Exactly. If two people are arguing in a kitchen, you already know roughly what kind of things people say in that situation. The context fills in the gaps.
And as you improve, you can move to more complex shows. It's like going up levels in a game. You don't start at level 10.
Nobody starts at level 10. You start at level 1, and you earn your way up.
Earn your way to the political drama. Okay, shift 3?
Shift 3, watch actively, not passively.
Actively. What does that mean in practice?
It means you are not just sitting and absorbing, you are engaging, and there are a few ways to do this. The first one is pause and repeat.
Pause and repeat.
Yes, when you hear a phrase you like, something that sounds natural, something you would want to use yourself, pause the show, say the phrase out loud, try to copy the exact rhythm and intonation of the actor, then press play and continue.
So you're not just hearing the English, you're producing it.
Producing it with your mouth, with your voice. And that is where real learning happens, not in the ears, in the mouth.
In the mouth, yes, because you can listen to something 100 times and still not be able to say it. But if you say it even 3 or 4 times with your mouth, it starts to stick.
It sticks. And the second active watching technique, shadow the dialogue.
Shadowing. Can you explain that for people who haven't heard of it?
Shadowing means you speak along with the show at the same time, not after, at the same time, like a shadow. You try to match the speed, the rhythm, the intonation of what you are hearing as it happens.
It sounds hard.
It is hard at first. You'll be half a second behind, you'll miss words, you'll mumble through parts you don't catch, and that is completely fine.
Because the goal is not perfection.
The goal is never perfection. The goal is training your mouth and ear to work together, and shadowing does that better than almost anything else I know.
It's like going to the gym for your accent and rhythm.
Exactly. Accent gym. Uncomfortable at first, very worth it after a few weeks.
Accent gym. I'm using that. Okay, shift 4.
Shift 4. Collect phrases, not words.
We talked about chunks in episode 2. This is the same idea.
Same idea, different context. When you are watching and you hear something natural and useful, don't just note the word, note the whole phrase, the whole chunk, how it was said, what situation it was used in, who said it, and why.
Because context is everything with spoken English.
Context is everything. Come on means completely different things depending on how it is said and in what situation. You need the full picture.
So you are building a phrase collection from real-life situations.
From real-life situations. Phrases that have already been tested in the wild. Phrases that real people actually use. Not phrases from a list in a workbook.
And then you practice them. You say them out loud. You find a moment to use one in real life.
You find a moment, because a phrase you never use is just decoration. A phrase you use once, even imperfectly, becomes yours.
Becomes yours. I love that. Okay, shift 5. Last one.
Shift 5. Rewatch. Do not be afraid to rewatch.
Rewatch the same episode?
The same episode, the same scene even, multiple times.
Why?
Because the first time you watch something, your brain is processing the plot. What is happening, who is who, what the situation is. Your brain is busy with the story.
There's not much space left for the language.
Not much space at all. But the second time, you already know the story. Your brain relaxes, and now it can focus on the language, the words, the rhythm, the way something was said.
And the third time?
The third time, you start to notice things you completely missed before, a joke that went over your head, a phrase used in a clever way, a piece of cultural reference that suddenly makes sense.
It's like reading a book twice. The second time, you catch everything you rushed past the first time.
Exactly. And with language, repetition is not boring. Repetition is how things move from your short-term memory to your long-term memory, from something you heard once to something you actually know.
From heard to known. That's the journey.
That is the whole journey. Okay, word tour. Let's go through today's vocabulary.
Slowly, clearly. Ready?
Ready. First word, exposure.
Exposure means being in contact with something regularly, being around it, hearing it, seeing it. In language learning, exposure means spending time with the language in real contexts.
For example, regular exposure to English through shows helped her ear adjust to the rhythm. Or, exposure alone is not enough. You have to engage with what you hear.
Exposure. Repeat, exposure.
Exposure. Next, passive.
Passive means receiving something without actively doing anything, just absorbing without engaging. Watching TV with subtitles in your own language is passive learning.
For example, passive watching feels comfortable but teaches you less. Or, the difference between passive and active watching is enormous.
Passive. Repeat, passive.
Passive. Next, intonation.
Intonation is the rise and fall of your voice when you speak, the melody of a sentence. It changes meaning and emotion even when the words stay the same.
For example, she copied the actor's intonation and suddenly sounded much more natural. Or, intonation is one of the hardest things to learn from a textbook, but one of the easiest to pick up from watching shows.
Intonation. Repeat, intonation.
Intonation. Next, shadow.
To shadow someone means to follow them closely and copy what they do. In language learning, shadowing means speaking along with the audio at the same time, copying rhythm and intonation.
For example, I shadowed my favorite character for 10 minutes every day and my rhythm improved noticeably. Or, shadowing is uncomfortable at first, but incredibly effective.
Shadow. Repeat, shadow.
Shadow. Next, context.
Context is the situation, background, or setting that gives meaning to something. In language, context helps you understand what a word or phrase really means in use.
For example, without context, a phrase can mean many different things. Or, learning words with context is always more effective than learning them from a list.
Context. Repeat, context.
Context. Next, repetition.
Repetition means doing something again and again, going over the same thing multiple times. In language learning, repetition moves things from short-term to long-term memory.
For example, rewatching the same episode uses the power of repetition to deepen your understanding. Or, repetition is not boring. Repetition is how language becomes automatic.
Repetition. Repeat, repetition.
Repetition. And last one, absorb.
Absorb means to take something in slowly and naturally, like a sponge absorbing water. When you absorb language, it enters you gradually through exposure and practice.
For example, she absorbed so much vocabulary just by watching shows consistently. Or, you cannot force absorption. You create the conditions and let it happen.
Absorb. Repeat, absorb.
Absorb.